kind of beside myself in some ways because I do not understand under what situation or circumstance it was allowed in any way, shape, or form for things to get to the point where they are. But this is what I understand has been revealed. First of all, whoever is identified as the attorney for this trust has not responded within 72 hours of me contacting them. And I know when you're talking about a suit of equity in the state of Texas, that 72 hours after the receipt is very important. And actually, in some ways, 72 hours after the date of the filing is important. And considering the fact that I did not receive this until the 15th and it was dated for the 12th, somebody already knew that. But I contacted them on the 15th at before 7 o'clock. And then I followed up per their recommendation or per their request with photos and an email. And I had the return receipt that it was received. I've had no other indication that it's even been opened by the recipient. And so that means something. If you receive and you intentionally don't open it and read it, it means something if you don't read it. And I have not gotten no indication that it has been read within 72 hours. Those are the facts. And so, absolutely nothing about this is legal. If they're using it as a derivative, I've already done what I needed to do to let them know that a derivative, especially in a matter like this, is not acceptable. I anticipate that what it is evidence of an attempt to do other crimes. But what I'm going to say is that this happened in a context where I have been watching what I understand to be very serious crimes at the level of the Treasury involving bond fraud or securities fraud, right? But like really extreme securities fraud. And what I'm seeing now is potentially a recapitulation of something that was revealed last week. There was a 30-year bond issued on May 15th. Now, annually, for a couple of years, they issue 30 years, a couple of times a year, including on May 15th, almost every year for a long period of time. And my birthday's May 15th. So I have all these 30-year bonds that are on my birthday. And in the last 5 years, I've had to get 4 birth certificates because I'll get them, and then something comes up within a very specific strategic period of time that ends up having all of these ramifications for somebody else's life. But when it comes to me, well, I haven't done something completely inexplicable, and so I'm out on the street. And not only am I out on the street, but within a very specific strategic period of time, a series of events come around cyclically, and then I end up having all of my stuff stolen. I'm allowed to get certain things, and then I'm completely divested. But I'm not even divested. I'm stolen from. I'm robbed. It's highway robbery every time, and usually it's just because of the way I am, or because of what you actually end up doing with a 30-year bond, right? Is it's very important stuff like evidence and primary source documents about particular kinds of research and these sort of things. So I've had 4 birth certificates, as far as I know, in my actual go through my hands in my possession within the last 5 years. That 30-year bond was issued on May 15th. They tried to do a reissue on July 15th. But in between, there was also another reissue. So in 2 months, there was the issue and then 2 reissues on the same bond. And not only does the way that the information and the date and the other kinds of metrics associated with demonstrate and confirm what has been evident in what I understand to be primary source documentation of the currency laws and the laws regarding the history of banking in the United States, to go all the way back that I can determine, and all the way back to before the Civil War, which then brings up the implications that I was identifying last year, having to do with the first mint and the first issue of stock for the United States that goes to the certificates that were given to the people who provided for the war effort. All of these different things. This is one of those incredibly, incredibly historical moments in global finance by virtue of what's going on within the United States. And so what happened is I tried to get a birth certificate. The 2 year anniversary of the replacement birth certificate is now. But what they did is they played this game where they pretended like they never got the payment. Well, we never got the payment for your birth certificate. That's not true. And the thing is that the payment was a money order from the USPS, right? It was a money order I purchased from the United States Post Office. So there's all kinds of things about securities that go into buying a money order from the United States Postal Office. As a matter of fact, when it comes to budgeting for the country, the post office plays a very specific role. And in the 2 years since then, there have been more than 50 different post offices all over the United States that have been renamed. And I've already pointed out the renaming on a post office is very remarkable because it usually involves a sponsorship by an individual from the home district of that post office, and it doesn't need any co-sponsorship, and it gets almost no resistance and no opposition when it tries to pass through Congress, and then the president ends up signing it. Does anybody know how many bills Donald Trump signed on January 5th of 2021 specifically about renaming post offices? For instance. And so what I contend they did is they took that 30-year bond and they used the birth certificate I had now, but just in time for it to be reissued on July 15th, which would be 3 days after the anniversary, the 2-year anniversary. They did something with the serialization of the bond itself and coded it to the birth certificate before. And the birth certificate before was the first time I had seen my long form birth certificate in over 10 years. Almost 15 years I hadn't seen my long form birth certificate. And it turns out, at least by what they say, that the time of my birth is 12 hours off from what I was supposed to believe for over 10 years, because somehow my mother's memory got impaired. And so the last time I spoke with her about it in 2009, she said, well, you were actually born in the morning. And I was like, well, that's not what my birth certificate said. Well, no, I'm your mother. I'd remember. Well, it turned out she was mistaken. But it took me 10 years to find it out because I couldn't get my birth certificate, my long form birth certificate. I contend what they did is they actually literally, and to me personally, but that also leaves open the possibility they're doing it with other people. Maybe a lot of other people. Maybe I actually am that important, right? But the point of the matter is, the birth certificate before was dated for April 19th of 2018. What's April 19th of 2018? Did anybody keep track? It was the anniversary of the Warsaw Uprising. The problem is, the people who wanted to do that game with me didn't want me to understand the significance of it being dated for the anniversary of the Warsaw Uprising. They had a different implication. The Warsaw Uprising happened around the time of the celebration of the birthday of Adolf Hitler. And so what I contend they did is, when I had that horrible vision, which made me very angry, and I am not going to apologize, where I said, why are you issuing Nazi stock? I think it's because in that bond issue, they swapped out the people who stole they stole my documents here in Dallas. They stole a lot of very, very important stuff you can't get anymore. And it isn't about my wardrobe. I heard you say this morning, well, we were going to give you your clothes back, but this isn't about the clothes. This is about the audio tapes. This is about the primary reference, the primary first reference of audio tapes that are recordings of actual speeches that presidents gave, 4 presidents. And somebody left it in a box on the street. Somebody left it in a box on the street. I took it out of the box on the street and I kept it with me until I ended up getting kicked out. And I was able to keep it until I got to Dallas. But I was on Dallas, and you know what? I was at Grassy Knoll. I was sleeping at Grassy Knoll when overnight somebody stole my glasses, and they stole my shoes, and they stole my suitcase that had those tapes in it, and my birth certificate. The one dated for April 19th of 2018. The problem is, they actually literally resequenced a 30-year bond in the intervening 2 months. Who did you guys think you were going to teach a lesson doing some shit like that? Because that's absolutely what you did. And it all lines up. This is part of your ceremony. Right? What are you going to do now? You can't possibly let that process stand. Because the truth of the matter is in order for whatever you were intending to do, I know this now, in order for whatever you were intending to do to be successful, certain things would have had to have happened that didn't happen. But then what are you going to do about that? You can't erase, you can't backdate any more than you already have. I mean, it's kind of reached a critical point at this juncture. And I'm just like, this is really, and that's just so you know, and you do know, that birth certificate and the fraud on that birth certificate was connected to fraud on the Social Security card and the accounts associated with the Social Security card. And what it meant that I went to the office of Senator John Cornyn and I told him in person I had evidence on me at that time. And he was the one who had the person in his office that wanted to simulate that they were somehow an officer of the Treasury. And they just had me come here, and I've been here ever since. And I'm not dead. And you got caught. And I'm naming you by name because this has to be addressed correctly. I do not think it is fair for anybody to say, we left you out in the streets. We trafficked you. You're supposed to be dead. You're not dead. That's the problem. It is never under any circumstances fair to say something like that. And that's what you've been saying. That's literally on another level what I've been hearing you've been saying for the last year. The whole process was you were the tax. And I know that because I'm not the only one. I think it's an annual tax, right? And I didn't die. So I'm just letting you know it's one of these weird, strange things, where it's kind of like I'm not playing Hitler, guys. I'm not Hitler. And in order for that to not be securities fraud, that means there are at least 5 other people. There are 5 other people who had fraudulently issued birth certificates dated for April 19th of 2018 that aren't dead. And unless you produce them within the next 72 hours, then I'm contending every single fucking issue that has come from the Department of Treasury since April 19th of 2018 is an act of securities fraud. Every single one of them. You need to produce at least 5 other people that have birth certificates. Reissues, by the way. Now, they had to get another birth certificate. I'm not talking about people born that had their birth certificate issued on that day. 5 other people that survived the Warsaw Uprising with me. Where are they? It is 7:20 p.m. on July 18th, 2021. You have 72 hours.